Everyone ignored the man wrapped in a dirty blanket, sitting in the corner. Long beard, worn clothes, trembling hands. The homeless guy outside the grocery store was just part of the city landscape, until Police Chief Morrison stepped out of his car, looked into the man's eyes, and dropped to his knees. My God, is that you? Is that really you, Sergeant Mitchell? Welcome to Silent Valor Stories. Before we begin this powerful tale of recognition and redemption, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from today? And if you believe our forgotten heroes deserve better, hit that subscribe button. Colorado Springs, Colorado, a military town in the shadow of Pikes Peak, where Fort Carson sprawls across thousands of acres and Peterson Air Force Base cuts through the eastern sky. A place where military and civilian worlds intersect every day. But on this cold Tuesday morning in November, those worlds were about to collide in the most unexpected way. James Mitchell had been living on the streets for 3 years. Not by choice, never by choice. But when your mind carries ghosts that pills can't kill and your nights echo with screams that bourbon can't silence, sometimes the streets feel safer than walls that close in on you. He'd claimed a corner outside the Walmart on Academy Boulevard, just far enough from the automatic doors to avoid security, close enough to catch the warmth when they opened. His possessions fit in a stolen shopping cart. 2 blankets, a tarp for rain, empty bottles worth recycling, and buried at the bottom, wrapped in plastic, his Delta Force challenge coin and a folded flag from his wife's funeral. The morning started like any other. The sun crept over the plains, painting Pikes Peak gold while the city below stayed gray and cold. Mitchell pulled his blanket tighter, ignoring the commuters who rushed past, eyes averted, pretending he didn't exist. He'd gotten used to being invisible. Preferred it, actually. Invisible men don't have to explain their failures. At 0800 hours, he still thought in military time, a black SUV pulled into the parking lot. Nothing unusual about that. This was Colorado Springs. Half the vehicles were trucks or SUVs. But something about the way it parked, angled for quick exit, engine running for a moment before shutting off, made Mitchell look up. Police Chief Robert Morrison stepped out, adjusting his dress uniform. He was heading to the monthly community outreach at the Marion House homeless shelter downtown, a duty he'd taken on personally since becoming chief 2 years ago. But first, a stop for coffee. He walked toward the store entrance, past the usual collection of shopping carts and trash, past the homeless man hunched in the corner. Then he stopped. Something about the way the man sat. Back against the wall, but not relaxed. Eyes down, but aware. Hands visible, but ready. It was a posture Morrison had seen before, had lived himself. The way soldiers sat in hostile territory when rest was necessary, but vigilance was survival. Morrison changed direction, walked closer. The homeless man glanced up just for a second, then back down. But that second was enough. The eyes. Blue-gray, like winter sky, over Baghdad. The scar through the left eyebrow. The nose. Broken and healed wrong. The way he held his shoulders, even now, even broken. "Mitchell?" Morrison whispered. The man's head snapped up. Recognition flickered, followed immediately by shame. He pulled the blanket higher, turned his face away. Morrison's legs gave out. He dropped to his knees right there on the cold concrete, dress uniform and all. His voice broke. "My God! Is that you? Is that really you, Sergeant Mitchell?" "You've got the wrong guy," Mitchell muttered, voice rough from disuse. "No." Morrison's eyes filled with tears. "No, I'd know you anywhere. Firebase Phoenix. October 15th, 2009. You pulled me out. Carried me 2 clicks under fire. I was just a scared kid, bleeding out. And you—" He choked on the words. "You saved my life." Mitchell finally met his eyes. That was a long time ago. Not long enough to forget. Morrison sat back on his heels, struggling to process what he was seeing. The man who'd been legend in their unit, who'd run operations so classified they didn't officially exist, who'd earned a chest full of medals he never wore, sitting in filth outside a Walmart. What happened? Morrison asked softly. Mitchell laughed, bitter and short. Life. Life happened. Come with me, please. Let me buy you breakfast. Let me... I don't need your charity, Morrison. It's not charity. It's... Christ, Mitchell, you saved my life. You saved half our unit at one point or another. Let me help. You want to help? Mitchell's voice turned hard. Then walk away. Forget you saw me. That man you knew? He's dead. Has been for years. I can't do that. You will. Mitchell stood, gathering his blanket. Because I'm asking you to. One soldier to another. Let the dead stay dead. He pushed his shopping cart away, leaving Morrison kneeling on the concrete, watching the ghost of his salvation disappear into the morning crowd. Morrison sat in his office at the Colorado Springs Police Department, staring at his computer screen. He'd pulled Mitchell's service record, what little wasn't classified. Distinguished Service Cross, Silver Star with V device, 4 Bronze Stars, Purple Hearts he'd stopped counting, Operational Detachment Delta from 2003 to 2015, then nothing, like he'd vanished. But Morrison dug deeper, made calls to people who made calls. By afternoon he'd pieced together the story. Mitchell had retired in 2015 after his wife, Sarah, was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. Spent 2 years watching her die by inches, burning through savings on treatments insurance wouldn't cover. The house in Manitou Springs went first, then the car, then everything else. When she died in 2017, Mitchell buried her with full honors at Fort Logan National Cemetery in Denver, then disappeared. PTSD, his former commander told Morrison over a secure line. Bad. We tried to get him help, but after Sarah died, he just gave up. Said he'd spent 20 years keeping other people alive and couldn't save the one person who mattered. Morrison found him 3 days later at the soup kitchen on Bijou Street, downtown Colorado Springs. Mitchell saw him coming and started to leave, but Morrison blocked his path. I'm not asking for your story, Morrison said. I'm not asking for anything. But I'm eating lunch here today, and there's an empty seat at my table. Mitchell studied him for a long moment. You always were a stubborn son of a bitch. They sat in silence at first, eating watery soup and stale bread. Around them, other homeless veterans and civilians hunched over their meals, invisible to the world outside. Morrison noticed how Mitchell watched the room. Exits mapped, threats assessed, even now. You know what the worst part is? Mitchell finally said. It's not the streets. It's not the cold or the hunger or the looks. It's that I used to matter. I used to make a difference. Now I'm just another crazy vet talking to himself on the corner. You still matter, Morrison said quietly. To who? To me. To the 6 other guys from Firebase Phoenix who are still breathing because of you. To their kids who got to grow up with fathers. Morrison leaned forward. Look, I'm not going to pretend I understand what you're going through, but I know you, Mitchell. I know what you're capable of. That doesn't just go away. Mitchell shook his head. You knew who I was. This? He gestured at himself. This is who I am. No, this is where you are. There's a difference. Before Mitchell could respond, Morrison's radio crackled. Chief, we have a situation at Pikes Peak Elementary. Armed suspect in the vicinity. All units responding. Morrison stood immediately, the conversation forgotten. Pikes Peak Elementary was 6 blocks away. Mitchell stood too, old instincts firing. Where are you going? Morrison asked. 6 blocks east, winds from the west. He'll approach from downwind side to avoid dogs. Mitchell's eyes had changed, suddenly sharp. Single shooter or multiple? Unknown. Mitchell, you can't... But Mitchell was already moving, not running but walking fast, purposeful. Morrison cursed and followed. By the time they reached the school, patrol cars had formed a perimeter. Officers crouched behind vehicles, weapons drawn. The school was in lockdown, children hidden under desks, teachers standing guard with nothing but their bodies between evil and innocence. Talk to me, Morrison demanded. White male, 30s, AR-style rifle, Sergeant Davis reported. Circling the building, hasn't made entry yet. Looks like he's looking for a specific access point. Mitchell studied the scene from behind a patrol car. His whole demeanor had changed. The homeless veteran was gone. In his place stood an operator. Southwest corner, Mitchell said quietly. Playground access. Doors probably propped open for recess. He's done recon. Morrison looked at him sharply. How do you... Because that's what I do. Mitchell's voice was ice. Wind patterns, sun angle, minimal exposure. He's not random. He's planned this. The radio crackled. Suspect approaching southwest playground entrance. Morrison grabbed his radio.
Do not let him enter that building. No clear shot, Chief. Too many windows. Too many kids inside. Mitchell turned to Morrison. Give me a vest and a radio. Absolutely not. Rob. First time he'd used Morrison's first name. You know what I can do. You know who I am. Those kids. They're Sarah's age, when we would have had them. When we tried to have them. Morrison saw it then. Not just the tactical assessment, but the personal stakes. Mitchell and his wife had tried for children. Failed. Another loss in a life full of them. I can't authorize. Gunfire erupted. Screams from the school. The shooter had entered. Mitchell didn't wait for authorization. He vaulted the patrol car hood and sprinted across open ground. Not the shambling run of a homeless man, but the fluid movement of a predator. Morrison screamed into his radio. Hold fire! Friendly approaching southwest entrance. Hold fire! Mitchell reached the building as the shooter moved down the main hallway. Through the window he could see children running, teachers herding them to classrooms. The shooter raised his weapon. Mitchell didn't have a gun. Didn't need one. He burst through the door and covered 20 feet in seconds. The shooter turned at the sound, swinging his rifle around. Mitchell deflected the barrel with his left hand, feeling the heat of a round passing inches from his head. His right hand found the shooter's throat. The takedown was brutal and efficient. Throat strike to disrupt breathing. Knee to solar plexus. Rifle stripped and cleared in one motion. The shooter hit the ground gasping. Mitchell kicked him once in the temple. Precise. Measured. Unconscious. Not dead. Clear! Mitchell shouted, old habits returning. Shooter down. Southwest hallway clear. Officers flooded in, weapons drawn, finding Mitchell standing over the unconscious shooter, rifle broken down and safe. Children peered from doorways. Teachers sobbed with relief. Morrison arrived to find Mitchell leaning against the wall, adrenaline fading. Blood seeped from his left arm where a bullet had grazed him. His hands shook now, but not from cold. 7 classrooms on this hall, Mitchell said quietly. 30 kids per room average. 210 souls. He looked at Morrison. That's worth something, right? Mitchell. I need to go. Mitchell pushed off the wall, started walking. You're shot. I've had worse. Mitchell, Morrison's command voice. You're not walking away from this. Mitchell turned back, and Morrison saw tears cutting tracks through the dirt on his face. I did my job. Again. That's all I know how to do. Save lives and lose everything else. The media arrived within minutes. Cameras, reporters, chaos. Someone had phone footage of Mitchell's takedown. A blur of motion. Violence turned to protection. By evening, the story was national. Homeless veteran stops school shooting. But Mitchell had vanished again. Morrison found him that night at Fort Carson's entrance, standing outside the gate, looking in at a world he'd once belonged to. Couldn't go far, could you? Morrison said softly. This was home for 10 years. Mitchell didn't turn around. Sarah and I lived in base housing, apartment 344B. She planted roses out front. They're probably dead now. You're a hero. Again, the whole country wants to thank you. I don't want thanks. Mitchell stopped. I want my wife back. I want to sleep without seeing faces. I want to matter for something other than violence. You saved those kids. By being violent, by being what they trained me to be. A killer. A protector, Morrison corrected. There's a difference. They stood in silence, watching soldiers come and go, living their ordered lives. Let me help, Morrison said finally. Not charity, not pity, just one warrior helping another find his way home. Mitchell was quiet for so long Morrison thought he wouldn't answer. Then, I don't know if I remember what home is. Then we'll figure it out together. The community response was overwhelming. Within days, a GoFundMe raised over $500,000. Veterans organizations lined up to help. The VA expedited mental health services they'd denied for years. A local contractor, himself a veteran, offered a small house in Old Colorado City, rent-free for life. But Mitchell resisted all of it. I don't deserve this, he told Morrison over coffee at a shop on Tejon Street. Other vets need it more. Other vets didn't save my life. Other vets didn't stop a massacre at an elementary school. I was just in the right place. No, you put yourself in the right place. You've been doing it your whole life. Slowly, painfully, Mitchell began to accept help. Therapy at Evans Army Hospital, a part-time job at a veteran-owned security company, the house in Old Colorado City, where he planted new roses in memory of Sarah. 6 months later, Morrison stood in Mitchell's small living room. The place was sparse but clean. A photo of Sarah on the mantel, his medals in a frame, finally displayed instead of hidden. How are you? Morrison asked. Surviving, Mitchell said. Then softer. Living, maybe. The kids from the school want to meet you. Their parents, too. Mitchell shook his head. I'm not ready for that. They need to see you, to know that heroes are real, that good men stand watch. I'm not a hero, Rob. I'm just a soldier who couldn't adjust to peace. Maybe that's what heroes are. People who can't stop protecting others, even when it costs them everything. Mitchell looked out his window at Pikes Peak, eternal and unchanging. Sarah would have liked those kids, would have wanted me to meet them. She would have been proud of you. She was always proud, even when I didn't deserve it. You deserved it then. You deserve it now. A year later, Mitchell stood before a classroom at Peterson Air Force Base, teaching situational awareness to young airmen. He'd found purpose again, not in violence, but in preparation, helping others protect and survive. Morrison watched from the doorway as Mitchell taught, saw the engaged faces, the respect in their eyes. The homeless veteran was gone. In his place stood a teacher, a mentor, a man who'd found his way back from the darkness. After class, they walked to the memorial garden where a new plaque had been installed. For those who serve in silence and stand watch in the shadows. Thank you, Mitchell said quietly. For what? For not letting me disappear. For reminding me that warriors don't retire. They just find new missions. Morrison smiled. What's your mission now? Mitchell looked back at the classroom. Making sure the next generation is ready. Making sure they know that strength isn't just about fighting. It's about surviving the peace. And if they can't, then they'll know they're not alone, that someone who's been there is standing watch. They stood together in the Colorado sunshine, two warriors who'd found their way through different battles. In the distance, Pikes Peak stood sentinel over a city where heroes sometimes wore uniforms and sometimes wore rags, but always, always stood ready to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. So now I ask you,
How many invisible heroes walk past us every day? How many men and women who've given everything sit in our shadows, forgotten and overlooked? Tell me in the comments where you're watching from. And if you know someone like Mitchell, such someone who served and now struggles in silence, because at Silent Valor Stories, we believe that no hero should be forgotten. No warrior should face the darkness alone. And sometimes, all it takes is one person to look past the surface and see the soul still standing watch beneath. Thank you for watching. If this story moved you, subscribe and share it. Help us remind the world that heroes don't always wear capes or uniforms. Sometimes they wear dirty blankets and sit outside grocery stores, invisible guardians waiting for one more chance to matter. Until next time, remember, look closer at the forgotten faces in your community. You might be walking past a hero. And to all the Mitchells out there, we see you. You matter. You always have.